let's jump into the main thing I want to cover, and it will probably be very quick, so we can do some other stuff. Is the bindings manager window. So, I guess first off, I'll recap some stuff in case no one really knows how mobile works currently. So right now we just have a preview screen of what your game will look like in mobile. So there's no like emulator currently that will be coming in the future. So in order to kind of get that preview, you have to open up the device preview options next to the play button at the top. Am I coming through okay? Audio and
Yep.
visual wise? All right, awesome.
Yep.
Hey, Commander Fu.
Hello. Hello, everyone.
I see my boot campers.
Yeah, they'll be coming over in a sec.
Awesome. All right, so I'm just going over the basics. In order to show off the preview, you can kind of get that device frame of the phone, and you can even get this little notch on the screen. So sometimes it'll be blocking some UI or some other aspect of your game that normally wouldn't be there for PC. And yeah, you can also change the different type of device you want to test out. So you got the iPad, and you can even do PC. Not sure exactly why you would do PC. Maybe there's some special cases, but yeah, very cool. Um, so you can see this is kind of like for UI, the safe zone, kind of like what will be should always be visible. Anything inside the orange box, useful for that. And you can, when you turn the phone over, you can see the other side using this little checkbox. Yeah, so this is how you can see the device. And when you press play, you will also be able to test out the touch feature by left clicking. So it's as if you're using your finger. I don't actually know if like you can do touch input. Like if you had a computer, you probably can, which is interesting. If you have a computer that has a touch screen, I wonder if this actually works. If you use your, it should, because it kind of already does that. So, but yeah, you can use the mouse as if you're using your finger. So on the left side, you can kind of move around. On the right side, you can kind of rotate the camera by dragging it, and there is going to be some custom buttons at the, or not custom, default buttons at the top. So I believe this is for mounting. You can open up some settings for like choosing an email, and yeah, all that good stuff that you need. And yeah, you'll sometimes have these other buttons on the screen. I believe these are here always by default, A and B for crouching as well. I think if I'm not mounted, let's check. Yeah. So yep, you have some stuff already here by default, but there's also some built-in stuff that we have added, which is nice. So for example, if you have a weapon, so let's get like a rifle. Oops. Let's throw this in here. And Wappy, you said someone has said it doesn't work. What was that something I mentioned? So let me just show you what is already built in. So if I were to walk on over to the rifle, you'll notice that when you interact, it has the X, and this button suddenly appears. So it kind of like does it dynamically, shows any controls that you have. So there's nothing to interact, so X is not there, but once I have something to interact with, I can press X and pick up the weapon. Using a touchscreen. Oh, interesting. Yeah. Um, it's such a niche use if you do have a computer that has a touchscreen, but I'm sure we'll come around to that problem. Not that big of a concern at the moment, but yeah. And then you'll notice that another button appears. So I have Y now, and I think that's for reloading. How do I actually shoot though? That's interesting. Maybe it's one of these triggers. Oh, there you go. So you have the little bumpers, I guess. So one thing to notice is that these kind of mimic a actual controller, like something that you could hold in your hand. So we have the right bumpers, the left bumper, the kind of the A, B, Y, X numbers over here, and then we also have a D-pad, which is not appearing at the moment. So yeah, these buttons will also work if you were to have a controller plugged in. So if you did press A, you would be jumping as well. So yeah, you can see that Y is reload for the rifle. So the rifle already comes with these abilities built into the actual input for touch input. So yeah, let's break down how that works. So if you were to look at the advanced rifle, they have these things called abilities for the equipment for shooting and reloading, and then there's also one for zooming in as well, which I think I can mimic. I think that was the left bumper. I just didn't test it. So if I did, yep, left bumper, it's a zoom in. So that's built in as well. So if we look at the abilities though, they have this property called action name, and it says shoot here. So this is how it actually knows what the ability, it needs this ID for shooting, and the way it actually knows like we're pressing the right bumper to shoot is with the bindings manager window. So if I open up the bindings manager window, we have a bunch of abilities already built in for like moving, shoot, or crouching and jumping, and then there's one for shoot right here. So that's the ID that has to line up with the action name property. So it's referencing this right here, the shoot name. And there is some options for different types of input. So we have the keyboard, left mouse button is usually if you're on a PC to shoot. And then there's also the controller, what's it called? Drop down here. So it's using the right trigger. So that's why if I were to change it, maybe I want X or I think Y was. Well, X is also interact, so that might actually conflict. We can test that out as well. So if you change it to X when we play now, it will be. Oop, did I? Let's see. I did change it, right? The X button. That's interesting. So yeah, maybe since it's conflicting with the interact, that actually could be a problem. So let's change it to the D-pad up just to see if it actually. Oh wait, do I need to be in play mode? All right, there we go. So D-pad up will be our shoot now. So if I go over to the gun, let's see, where is it? Is it still right trigger? Oh, interesting. It actually did an update. Why is that? Do I have to like save somehow? That is very
Didn't have
strange.
to.
Maybe it's like because of. Let's test it out. So if we have our own ability, so let's get a uh, ability, and then we want it to be attached to the player. So we'll have to get a equipment as well. So our ability will be. Let's see. How about just wave? We'll just have the player wave, and then let's change the animation to be wave, unarmed wave. Cool. So let's get an equipment, so that way it can be attached to the player. Equipment. Does it already come? No, it doesn't. Cool. Alright, and then it has a box trigger. So where is this guy? There it is. And let's see, the box trigger. We'll just make it so I can walk up to it, I guess. That's fine. And then I guess for the sake of seeing something, we'll attach a cube or something. Let's see. It is on the equipment. Oh, but the box trigger is kind of off in the distance. Let's move it all together. Alright. Let's try it out. So if I walk up to my box, I should be able to. Oh, is it? Maybe I should make it client side actually. That way I don't have collision. Let's see, create a. And let me look at text as well, make sure I don't miss anything, especially since you can link. Oh, that's cool. So you can actually use a controller with your iOS device. Actually, with that,
Yes.
that is awesome. That'll make games a lot easier if you can. All right, so let's get a networked client context. Let's test this out. So the box trigger is, let's make it a little bit bigger. There it is. Alright, so if I run into my cube, I'm hoping yeah, get a big cube. And now I have the X. Is that going to wave for me? It is not. Alright, so we have the ability, though, on the player now, which is great. And I believe we gave it a name. The action name was wave. So we have to go to our bindings manager and add a action, or a binding action. So down at the bottom here, we can add a basic binding. We're going to have to give it that name, which is going to match wave. And then we can give it a keyboard button if we want. I don't know, like H or something. And then let's try using X. So this might be conflicting, so we'll see. Oh no, you can see it. It does the wave. Awesome. So yeah, I was a little confused why the... Oh, and I wave and I pick up the gun now. So it's still shooting. But in the bindings manager, it should be D-pad up now. So yeah, this must be getting overridden. So yeah, it must be just because it's like a special default one, which is fine. But yeah, that's essentially how you make your own basic binding. You just have to create it here, create the name, and then make sure if you have an ability, you change the property to be matching, and it's as simple as that. Now I can wave by pressing the X button. Although you probably want to be using... So let's try the D-pad up since we didn't actually get to see it. So if I... Yeah, now you can see the D-pad is up here. So if I press the up on the D-pad... I apologize if it's very faint. But let's see. Oh, this is strange. I can't actually... When I go to full screen, it actually kind of bugs out my my touch input. Yeah, it works here, but if I go here, oh, there it goes. Must have been in a weird state. But yeah, you can see the D-pad is now on the screen, which is very cool.
If you press U, you can cycle to probably the bigger device. I think it's the iPhone 13 Pro Max.
That is very cool.
Mm.
I did not know that. I learned something today. So you changes the device, just going down the list, probably?
Yeah.
Oh, that is super cool. A fountain of knowledge, Commander Fu. So, Fo asked, will it still work in multiplayer mode? The waving aspect or the binding? So yeah, we can the actual device will not. So if I were to kind of so let's just show that off. So if I were to enable multiplayer preview mode, you won't actually see the device frame anymore, and I don't think you can actually test the touch input either. So we'll just show it off. Yeah, so it's only keyboard and mouse input. So yeah, that actually is not available at the moment. Only from the default preview mode. That is something good to know. Sweet. Any other questions regarding that? If not, I can definitely just move on to some other cool stuff. Yeah, we can bring up the API. So I think next week we're going to kind of jump in more into the coding aspect, but still good to show it off. So if we go to the on the API page from the docs website, the Bible of all good stuff in coding. So if we go down to the input namespace, we have a lot of very cool new functions, and a lot of them have to deal with Touch API. So we have like stuff for the pinch value, which is interesting. So like if you were to like zoom in with your phone using 2 fingers, There's also some stuff for like actually showing the virtual controls if you for some reason wanted to hide that. Which yeah, maybe if you're doing like a cutscene or something. Uh, oh no, I'm late. Nope, you're just in time. Don't worry about it. Um, and let's see. Yeah, so that would actually be interesting if you could kind of hide this temporarily. Yeah, maybe we can try that out. So if I press X, maybe we want to just like hide the virtual controls and see if that actually works. So let's set up a little script for that. Let's Yeah, I guess another cool thing I can show off is maybe we want like a button on the screen. So like if I were to press Y, I can kill myself. Like if you get stuck somewhere, that might be useful for some games to kind of like reset the player and spawn him somewhere else. You can set it up to just like spawn the player again, but maybe be kind of funnier to just have like a suicide button. So let's actually do a quick example of how you set up a binding using code. So first off, I'm going to make a script since it's going to have to do a specific action. And my favorite window is the script generator. So I'd be remiss if I didn't bring it up. So let's take a look. And we have this nice one, which is checking an event if an input action has been pressed to release. Which is exactly what we're checking. We're going to be checking if like someone presses the Y button. So we can click here and it has these generated ones. We just want to check if we press it, so we don't need the action released event. So now we can just copy this. I can even change the action name up here. So let's just do a respawn because I think that's a little friendlier than just killing. So we got a action called respawn. We're gonna have to create it still. And actually, I can just press this button, create new script, and it'll do it for me. So, what should we call it? Respawn ability. Great. I'll just shove this over here in case I need it. And we should have a new script in our project content, respawn ability. So I'm going to throw it in here. Panic button. That's a much better name. If all else fails, respawn the player. Alright, so let's edit the script, take a look at what we got. So it by default made a handler function called onActionPressed, and it's taken a few things. It's taken the which player pressed it, the action string. So that's gonna have to we're gonna have to create an action called respawn, and it also has a value which is useful for like the moving control stick. You can see like how far it's being dragged to the left or the right. It will return like one or a number between -1 and 1 for that type of scenario. Not really useful for a button though, so we'll kind of ignore that for now. And then it will print something out for me to kind of show off what these parameters actually are. And we have this if statement, which is checking if the action is equal to respawn, which will be the name. So in here, inside the if statement, is where we're going to actually add our logic, which is to respawn the player. So if we go to the script helper, we can check how to respawn something, or is it called despawn? I think it's called despawn, probably. Despawn, and use spawn to function to respawn the player. So we might have to use both of these. So we can just copy this, and we can use our property, or our parameter player. And so we have a reference to whatever player pressed it, and then we can paste the despawn function. And then right after, we're going to have to spawn the player again. So I learned this the hard way. This is how you can respawn a player. So when I press the action, it will despawn the player and then respawn it again. So let's try this out. We're going to need to actually create the binding, or the action. So let's add another basic binding. And let's call it the same name, respawn. And we'll give it a random keyboard, because that's not what we're looking for. And I guess we'll use the D-pad. That is yeah, you can see all the different ones that we have available. So we have like the uh, bumpers and triggers. We have the right stick, left stick for moving and rotating the camera, and the ABXY stuff, the D-pad as well. So we'll use the D-pad, might as well. And I think we're all good to go. So we have our binding. We have a script which is going to check if that binding is pressed. And let's see if it works. So if I, for instance, like, leave the map. So let's just like jump off the map. Oh no, I'm floating forever. Down? Will it work? Uh-oh. Let's check my event log. Oh, nothing's happening. Did I not save it?
You didn't mark the action in the binding set as networked.
Oh, I did not. You are right. So that is required if you have a something that's going to be on a server script. Is that uh
Yeah.
yeah, okay. So I did not realize that. So let's try it out again. Oop, got my cube head. Jump off the map. And then if I press the down, oh, there we go. It worked. And you can even see that outputted stuff just to confirm. So that's very good to know. So if I were to do the like a client side script, I wouldn't need to do the let's actually test that. So like let's say I wanted to have like there's this fly up text you can do. That'll be a quick little test, which is only client side. So we'll create a new script. Using our script generator, of course. I will need to, let's just say like hello will be the name of the ability. And we'll call it the hello ability. I have my new script. I am going to put it in client context. I think you can just use spawn. Yeah, maybe. I've done this before and it didn't work for some reason. I'll try that out as well. So we have the hello ability. Let's bring it up. And then do I still have it copied? I might not. So I want to show just like something above the player. So I'm going to use the player's position and then just like throw it up above his head. So get the world position of the player. I'm going to do some vector math, scary stuff. So vector 3 dot up, and then I'll multiply it so it's a little bit higher than the player's head. So I think 150 should work. So this should put it in the right spot. I don't need any optional parameters, so I'll get rid of that. And I will change this to be hello. Alright, and then in our binding expander, I'll add another basic binding, and I'm doing this example just to see if I don't need to network this, if it's in client context. So I think I have everything set up. I have my hello ability. It's not in client context, so let's create a new client context. There it is. And yeah, I think we're all good to test it out. So, oh, I don't think I actually made I didn't actually add a binding for our touch input. So let's use D-pad left maybe. We're going to be running out of options soon. So let's see, if I press left, there it is. So yeah, since it's in client context, I don't actually need to network it. So anything that does require networking, such as a server script, will need to have this toggled on for networked binding. And you can see there's some stuff already, like aiming is requiring it. So good to know. Oh yeah, and I didn't test my spawning. Let's see. So if I were to kind of hop off the world, looks like Commander Fu already answered it, but yeah, it seems like the down arrow is not respawning me, so it does work, but respawns the player in their current place. Ah, there you go. That makes sense. So you do actually need to despawn it to kind of like take the player out of the world, and then spawning it again will put it in the desired location. Very cool. Let me just double check I didn't miss any questions. Should we only have one binding set per game? Um, I would say yes. For the most part, I can't think of any reason why you would want more than one. Um, maybe if you wanted to change it for the player based on like where they're from, maybe it's more popular. I know some countries have different keyboards, um, not QWERTY, so I could see that being a reason.
Another reason you might only want controls to be different when you're doing something else, like maybe UI pops up and you want to spawn in a separate binding set
Oh yeah,
to so you can spawn them in at runtime, which is quite handy.
that is quite handy. So, for instance, you would have like two different modes. Like, let's say you have like a open world game, and then you can jump into like a mini game of racing. So now your bindings are kind of being switched out. Um,
Yeah.
that is a good reason. So yeah, the way you would do that, you would have to create a new binding set, and I believe it's just inside of core content, so we can search for it. Binding sets, so chuck it in here, and then it should just be the same. Oops, just like double click it. Default binding. Oh, interesting. So I've actually never made a different binding, so this is actually quite interesting. Edit the default bindings. So yeah, it pulls up this page. So I'd have to, oh, it's right here at the bottom. Create a new binding set. So you'd have like your race bindings. And there it is. And then I assume, oh yeah, it even creates it down here for me automatically. That was much easier. So it doesn't actually come with any, so I'd have to manually be adding all the bindings that I want for this new binding set. Maybe I could just like, is there a way to just like duplicate everything? I assume there is.
Yeah, you could duplicate the default binding set and then use that in your racing binding. So you can set the custom property in there. The bindings property, the binding set, you can change that. So you would duplicate first and then add the default one to it.
Okay, so just straight from the hierarchy, like this.
Yeah, so you see where you got that one?
Mm-hmm.
If you locate that, if you duplicate the default binding one,
Oh, there you
and
go.
now you
Now
can
you have a
and
copy.
then you can put that on your racing binding one in your hierarchy
Just
and
drag and
switch them
drop
out.
it here.
Yeah.
Very cool. That is much easier. Thank you. Um, yeah, and then you can just make any edits. So, for instance, if you need to use the X and Y for something different, you just go down to change whatever you need to. And then you would need to set up some logic. And in our API, there should be a way to set the binding. Let's see, I must have missed it somewhere. Let's actually check real quick. So you have the binding set here, and then, oops, where's my, let's see if it just pops up for searching. Action precedent, binding sets, okay, actions. How actually do you change the binding? As in the game?
It would be actually just using a different binding set if you want to override or have your
So
new
there's no
binding.
there's no way to do it with code to switch from one to the other?
No, you can enable and disable them, but you
Hmm.
can't
So it happens at
automatically.
runtime then.
Exactly, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was hoping. So, how would you actually switch from like if this was a mini game to the new binding? You would have to just change the uh, maybe like jump into a new scene or something.
You could you could potentially destroy the default bindings and let the race bindings be the default.
Mhm.
In theory, the race bindings should overwrite the default bindings.
Yeah, let's test it out. So if I were to change the jumping, let's say I just want it to be X for this racing binding, and we'll get rid of our duplicate here. So the race binding is using the copy. Good. So let's see if I were to press X. Yeah, I jump. So it does override it. And if I were to delete the race binding, I should no longer have an X. Alright, that's good to know. So any custom binding that you create will be overriding the default. So that makes sense. And do I still have my I have this one, I have hello, and I have yeah, respawning. Alright, let me take a quick look at the text again. If you guys have any questions, feel free to shout it out there. So should we only have one binding set per game? I think the answer is yes. The mobile UI is customizable, right? Um, this, uh, the mobile UI. So the actual input, buttons, is that what you're referring to? I don't believe it's actually customizable. Yeah, we do have that option if we wanted to, um, display it or not. I don't think there's an actual way to change it, like its size or position. But you
There
could
isn't.
you could design
Yeah.
your own and kind of hide the default one. Is that what you're gonna say, Commander Fu, or was there?
Yeah, you can't change the look of the current one,
Right.
the default one,
So
unfortunately.
you could just disable it, or yeah, disable the virtual controls, and then kind of create your own using your
Yeah.
own UI. Yeah, so yeah, it's kind of a workaround, but if I want to
And I
change the
think that is
colors,
I think that's on the game settings object where you can turn them on and off. I might be wrong in your hierarchy.
oh, my heart. Let's see.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's settings on it.
Oh wow. So you can actually just choose anything you want it to appear or not. So let's see if I were to disable all my ABXY, maybe I wanted it to be a little prettier. It is no longer there. So I would have to, so yeah, maybe we can create our own. Let's try that. So let's do a little UI. So to do that, I'm going to create a UI container. I'll create a little button. And it's up here, so this is also a good time to shout out the amazing media upload we can do now. So I could potentially create a very nice looking UI, and then, but for this, I'm just going to just do a quick little thing. So we have our UI button. Maybe we just want it to be letter A. I could just hide the colors if I wanted to have like an image there instead. Um, so like, let's see if I just change this color to fully transparent. Maybe I want a circle or something, so we can create a UI image of a circle. Actually, I could have just done that with the button. I don't know why added another image. It has an image property. So let's see. We have a cool looking circle there. I'll just bring back that color. Gotta use my favorite color. Alright, so we have a nice little A. We'll scale that to be a little bigger. And let's see. So the button at the bottom, we have this new property we can add, which is the action binding that it will check. So when I click the button, we can add an action here. So for instance, jump. And I'm hoping that it works. So let's try it out. Let me delete my UI image for the other. And yeah, let's jump in. So if I click A, there you go. So it actually does work. Very cool. So yeah, it would take a little bit of work, but yeah, you can definitely create your own UI buttons and just disable any ones you don't want to see from the default.
What's cool about that is you don't actually need to write any code.
Yeah, super nice. As much as I love writing code, I do enjoy having built-in stuff in the property, so this is something fairly new, which is super useful. Oh yeah, endless possibilities. You're totally right, Yodney. Yeah, you love the PNG uploading? I've yet to use it, so I'm quite excited to see. I'm gonna make some sprite sheet stuff for sure. That's going to be very fun to use. So yeah, maybe I can show that off a little bit. So we have this new window called Media Library. And you can upload an image. So if I were to go, I already have a sprite sheet ready. This is the OG one. I use this for many games. And then, so now it's kind of tied to my account. So this, you do have a limit, and you can see at the bottom here. Your current limits and stuff. And in order for me to actually bring it into the game, I'm going to have to create an image asset. And down here you can see it created a brush. And then from here, I believe I can just, like if I were to create a new image, there it is. I'm assuming I can just drag and drop it in. Let's give it a shot. There it is. Very nice. So yeah, a lot of fun stuff. I'm excited to see. Yeah, there should be a tutorial coming soon for this. So keep your eyes out for that. I probably don't have enough time to actually set up a sprite sheet script, but yeah, you can use like the panel in order to show certain. I can show that off a little bit. So create like a UI panel, and the sole purpose is going to be just to kind of show one of these tiles from the grid. So if I put the image as a child of the panel, you can use the clip children property of your panel. You can kind of see where I'm going. You now have a cutout of that certain tile from the image, and then in order for you to actually like go to the next image, you would have to move the image child to the left. You'll see the next thing come in. So you would have to use a little bit of scripting in order to like time this, but essentially, yeah, you can kind of get some animations going. So yeah, I'm excited to see some really cool 2D games. I'm sure many of you are as well. Let's see. Wait, does that mean you can cycle into the sheet? Yep. Yeah. Fun stuff. Wouldn't it be easier to have like 60 images and flip through them already positioned? I think you would probably run into a problem of having a lot of images because you can only have 100 tied to your account. So it
Um,
would. Oh,
it's
no.
not 100, it's 104 megabytes.
Oh, okay. I must have misread the docs. I thought it said 100 or 100 megabytes. So as long as you're below the cap, I guess you're fine. I actually find it easier to use a sprite sheet than dealing with 100 images.
Yeah, with 60 images, The problem with that is you've got to be downloading all 60 of those images, where with one sprite sheet, it's just one image.
Oh, true. Nightman says 100 or 100 megabytes.
Huh?
So yeah, I think we have a we can check our docs for
Changed?
this. So if
I
I
read
go
the reference, and
to yeah, you're the one that made the reference, so
I don't even know about that.
that's funny. Um, oh, maybe we need to update it.
Something must have changed.
Oh well. Yeah, I don't want to spend the time to make 100 images, but I guess you could easily test it. But yeah, anyways, I don't think you'd want to use that approach either way, even if you could have unlimited images. It's a lot easier to just manage one image, and yeah, and Commander Fu brings up a good point. You would have to be loading every image every time. Recreate Diablo. I love that idea. Yeah, I already kind of did this before when we had to hack our way around getting custom images. It was a fun exercise. I can show that off real quick. I'll save this. See my UI practice. So I have this little sprite sheet guy. The thing about this is that we couldn't use transparency, so now it's a lot more powerful. Um, so yeah, I could probably just bum the script off this. I'm sorry if this is not interesting, but yeah, I think we covered most of the mobile stuff for touch input. I'll go back to the other project. Just want to copy this code. It is interesting. Thank you. Yeah, this is from Pokemon. I don't know if anyone recognizes it, but that's one of my favorite games, and I love to try to recreate it. So, you know, add your own spin, of course, not to get trademarked or anything, but it would be fun to see that in core. And I do find it kind of funny to have like a 3D game with a 2D sprite on it. I don't know if that could ever be accomplished, having kind of a mixture of a 3D and a 2D game. That'd be fun. Or like approaching a arcade. Um, I think Zaz has a few uh, examples of that, like approaching an arcade and then you kind of switch into 2D mode. You can play like a helicopter, I believe, was the game made. Let's see. So I have that script. I guess I'll spend the rest of the hour doing this, but let me check, double check. Any questions? Oh, did you find the answer? There's a limit of 100 images or 100. Yeah, so
Yeah,
let's
100 images must have been added after the reference was published.
oh, okay. Makes sense.
Yeah, so we'll update that.
It's alright. It'll only be wrong for a day or a few hours. And let's double check the text. I'm already working in Core, but not as 2D. Love that. With a fixed angle, totally doable. Yeah, you could use World UI as well. I forgot that was a thing. So you could definitely have like a realistic kind of arcade screen in a 3D space. Any chance of a 2D or mobile challenges coming soon? Oh, you know it. That is definitely on the horizon. I bet my money on it. You know there's going to be a jam with just mobile type games. And I definitely will be making a 2D game. Well, okay, you're showing some screenshots. Very cool. Are these using the new image media uploader? No? Okay. Let's see. So I was using my sprite sheet code. My question is not related to sprites. That's totally fine. Yeah, any questions? feel free to change the subject. Is it possible to disable the top left? Oh, the default UI buttons? Right. I don't believe so. I think we want those to always be present in games. But we can double check the game settings. Yeah, it looks like these are just for the virtual controller type stuff, not really the default. Yeah, for instance, like pressing enter will never be taken out of games, which is kind of annoying, unless I'm wrong about that. I think we kind of made that decision that we should always have chat inside of games. And I think that's going to be the same for the top buttons. Although I guess you could hide the. Yeah, I don't know why I was overthinking it. You can actually just hide the virtual controller, right? And yeah, I actually never got to test that in this. Yeah, let's actually test that real quick. So there's in the API, there's in the input namespace. If I go back real quick. There's this function down here, disable virtual controls, but just based off the name, I'm thinking it's actually not going to work, but because the virtual controls are kind of the same thing. So I'm going to assume that so if we're still testing it, right? Assume these aren't a part of the virtual controls, so that is probably not going to happen, but we can test it. So we have a few scripts for pressing an ability already. So we can use our respawn, I guess. That's fine. Just chuck it in here. So disable the virtual controls when I respawn. So if I add this to the top, let's see. So how did I respawn? The down button? In a client only. Oh. So it has to be in a client script. That's fine. I have a client script with an ability. I was prepared. Which one was it? It was the hello one. There it is. So if I add it after this fly up text, I'm hoping it will kind of hide all the buttons for touch input, which they are basically already except the D-pad. I did that to show off making your own. So I think it was left, right? Oh, there it goes. Yeah, so the D-pad is gone. And so are my right and left bumpers, but the top ones are still here. So I'm afraid these are kind of permanent when it's detecting touch input. Unless there's a way to kind of trick it to thinking it's not touch input. We can maybe check. Get the current input type. I don't think that would be a thing to change the input type.
There's no way to force the input type.
Yeah, that's what I assumed. I kind of auto detects it. Like if you were to like mid. So like if I'm playing my game and using the touch controls, but then I start using the keyboard, it kind of detects that I've switched. Although the D-pad is still here, which is interesting. But yeah, you can see the top things kind of disappeared when I start using the keyboard. So
Yeah, there's a couple of bugs with the device preview at the moment.
oh, okay. So this probably shouldn't be happening, but
Yeah,
that's fine.
that's a known issue yet.
All right. Let's check the text again. Clipping panels, a lot of clipping panels. Yeah, I guess you could have like some sort of UI blocking it, but doesn't really fix the problem. Now you just have a lot of ugly UI on the top. Let me see. Someone I know changing skins. When will Core be released to mobile? Teddy to the rescue. And it will be both Google Play and iTunes. Yeah, so it is just iOS for now. So maybe further down the line we'll come to Android. Alright, I'll continue working on my sprite sheet code. Um, Maybe I can show off the actual logic I use for it. Oh, I can't do it in play mode. Edit the script. Alright, I don't think I have it copied anymore, do I? No. I will have to go back. Yeah, feel free to keep asking questions, guys. Don't mind me, just filling in the time. You guys just made me buy an actual device? Yes, it is time to invest in devices. I am excited to be getting an iPad soon. I'll definitely be having fun with that. Alright. Let's see if I can break this down. So yeah, my forte is making 2D games from my several JavaScript Flash projects. So let's see if I can remember everything I did. So I have a bunch of properties at the top here, which are kind of expecting the image, and then I have a panel that's supposed to be set up on the first image already, kind of cutting out to show the first one, and then I kind of move the image around. So I'm using this variable called frame. So if you imagine my little Pokemon is currently on the first frame, or it might not actually be on the first frame anymore. I think I moved the image around. But if I disable this clip children, so yeah, so this would be like frame 1, frame 2, frame 3, frame 4, frame 5, frame 6. So it goes from left to right down the rows. So each one is kind of represented by a number. And ooh, where'd it go? There it is. Yeah, and then I have like the max frames would be whatever the amount of rows and columns is multiplied. So like a 4 by 4 is 16 amount of frames. And then I'm using a little animation test to kind of time how often I want it to be. Uh, so this animation task will be repeated indefinitely because down here I have the repeat count to be -1. And I have a repeat interval, which is kind of when the next task will happen. So this is my animation speed. And then I have this is just incrementing the frame, and when it reaches the end, it goes back to 0. So every time this task happens, it goes to the next frame. And then I use a little bit of math in order to figure out what is the column and row based on the frame. So I'm not going to go too deep into that. But then once I have the frame, the column and the row, I can just change the sprite sheet's X and Y position to move it inside of that panel to kind of show the image I want. So I just have to multiply it. And I use negative because it needs to move to the left and it needs to move upwards, which might be a little confusing at first, but that's just how the image needs to move in order to be selecting the right frame. Let's go back to the text to make sure I'm not missing anything. Is there any known habits/tips we need to be aware of when converting our game from PC to mobile? Yeah, there's definitely a lot. So one big thing that was covered last week is the UI. Need to make sure it's not being obstructed by any device framing, or maybe you want to position it correctly based on the input. So there's a way to check if the touch input is currently being used. So that is super useful if you want to change it, change the layout of your UI. You have a nice tutorial link. Perfect. So
We do have another one for device-aware UI, but it's not published just yet.
this is the one I made. So yeah,
Yeah.
this is this is assuming you had a game that didn't have. So this is actually a little outdated because the guns did not actually have the shoot and reload ability built in, but now they do for any core weapon. So that's actually really nice. And a lot of the frameworks also got a update. So if I were to save this, we can check it out. Create a new project. Check out the deathmatch. It is all the frameworks have kind of this built-in logic for converting to mobile, so you can definitely pick this apart and see how they did it. So they have like the ability display at the bottom for using the R key or using the left mouse to reload and stuff like that. So if I were to play my game just normally without the device preview on, I should see when I get a gun. Yeah, at the bottom right, it's showing me to, use the left mouse button and use R. But if I were to switch it to be in device mode, we should have a different UI pop up. Looks like it didn't. Might just be a little bugged right now, but yeah, you see this instead. I'm hoping. There it goes. So yeah, now you have these nice little buttons instead for shooting and reloading. And the other UI is not appearing. So the way they did that is if you, well, you're going to have to set up your UI for both, and then you have to kind of display which one based on the input. So there's a script. Oh, sorry. If we go back to our favorite window, the script generator. Oh, is it already open somewhere? I can just open it here, I hope. Yeah, here it is. So there's one for when the input has changed. So you can check if it's either the keyboard or mouse or a controller. So in here you could essentially, we're going to have a tutorial on how to do this. But you would have to kind of display which UI you want based on what input is currently being selected. So good old script generator. You can do that quite easily if you're not sure how to get started. Yes, keyboard spam, my most frequent way of titling projects. Oh yeah, so you link this, but oh, it is live, or it's only in dev
It,
right now. You're right.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
but this is the one I was referencing. Commander Fu just made it recently, and it's gonna kind of showcase what I was talking about, where you can switch from two different styles of UI. So if you scroll down to the bottom, you kind of get a sense. So it will have like kind of some spacing added if you're in once it detects that you switch the touch input, the the top left image will move down to not be blocked by the default buttons, and you can even hide like R, or there's a bunch of numbers at the bottom that get hidden because you can't use numbers when you're on a phone. So yeah, you can do some cool stuff. Some touch, detecting when the input has changed.